Peace and love, family. Thank you for joining us on another edition of the Ram Club, Researchers of the African Mind, where we seek to liberate African minds by reading one unit of work at a time, family. My name is Lili La Poete Speaks, BKA Alima Njai. We'd like to thank you all for joining us. If you would like to be on the panel, or if you would like to listen in the discussion every Sunday at 7, then you go to www.
Sister Alima, your mic is muted. Your mic is muted.
I'm sorry, family. It wasn't muted the whole time, was it? Okay.
Not in the beginning, not when you did the intro, but then once you said I'm Lili La Poete Speaks, it kind of went out.
Okay, I didn't really say much. I was just introducing myself, but I'm the author of Perceptions of Express African Volume 1 family, available at LadiLaPuerteSpeaks.com. Volume 1, Volume 2 will be available at the beginning of 2019. Thank you all for joining us. We will be here every Sunday at 7 o'clock sharp Eastern Time. I'm going to let the rest of the panel introduce themselves. Peace and love.
Peace and love, family. My name is Dr. Deanna Bailey, also known as Dr.Maat. I am the co-founder of Ed Anime Productions and the executive producer of Meltrek. And I'm also a lecturer at the School of Engineering at Morgan State University. Sis, I'm happy to be in the building. I'm proud of us. This is another book under our notch that we've completed, sis. And so I'm very excited, about this. I know that we're going to be moving into our fourth book soon, and so happy to be here. I'm gonna go ahead and pass the mic to our brother Sean P.
ETM Hotel Brittany Sean. Welcome and peace. My name is Sean. I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in, especially Dr. Maat and Sister Lima for having me on the chat. It's gonna be a powerful show today again, as always, with the beautiful sisters. And Dr. Maat, Kofi's trying to reach you, by the way.
Is Brother Kofi trying to join the panel, Brother Sean P? Because if so,
yeah, you want me? I got him.
Okay, cool. All right.
The other brother is there or not?
Yeah, all I see.
Can everybody hear me?
Hey, bro, check this out. And I'm not trying to be, offensive or anything, but first you joined, we never saw your face. Now you join in and I see some no photo icon up and all of this. Like, what's the deal? Like, what's up?
I don't know what happened with that. I'm sorry for that.
Yeah, well, check this out. This is what we're gonna do. Do you know my Facebook? Name, Deanna Bailey?
Yes.
All right. So what I'm gonna do is mute my mic. You mute your mic, and I want you to call me up and FaceTime me on Facebook right now, and we're gonna go ahead and pass the mic to the panel.
Okay.
Brother JT, go ahead and introduce yourself, my brother.
T, you got to unmute your mic, King.
Unmuted, Brother T. We still can't hear him. I don't know what's going on today. Try to click out and then come back in, Brother T. Oh, Lord. Bro, why you come up on the set like that? You don't sound like some type of RBG gangster. Like,
that was correct, Brother Kofi.
Kofi, she talking to you, man.
Brother, I got it. I know. Hey, look, Sister Lima. I know exactly who the brother is. He just hit me. I know who he is.
Okay.
All right, that's my brother right there. We talk all the time. I know who he is now. Woo. All right.
Look, Kofi covering his face. We got other people that want to show their face. What's going on?
Right. What's up? That's my brother. I know exactly who he is. Go ahead, brother. Woo.
All right. Ukolo Namanla. This is Malisela. Here for part 3 of the falsification of African consciousness. Good to be here and with the resurgence of African mind. I can't wait till we hit on Urugu.
Oh yeah, Urugu definitely coming in that's definitely in the pipeline. So the sister and I were talking about doing it, I believe, in the top of the year, right, Queen?
Yeah, probably at the top of the year if we decide to go that route.
Right, no doubt. And Brother Kofi, did Brother Kofi introduce himself?
Nah, he there.
But all right, Brother T. Oh, there he is. There's Brother Kofi.
I want to say ETM Hotep, Dua Aku, Ube Egungun Kiki, Egungun. My name is Kofi Aitai, and I'm glad to be joining tonight. I appreciate y'all for welcoming me in the show.
All right, peace and love to you, brother. Brother T, I see you're back on, brother. Do you want to introduce yourself? There we go. Can't hear you, Brother T.
Volume.
You got that? Okay, so I see he has his headphones on.
Yeah, I think he because he got his headphones on and he trying to talk through the mic. His system, either his computer might be muted.
Oh, so brother T, disconnect your headphones from your computer and see if that'll work, and then unmute your mic.
Oh, we still can't hear.
Also, he disconnected. God, leave, Brother T.
I don't know. Gotta be something with the mic.
There could be something wrong with your mic, Brother T. I don't know if you're on your laptop or if you're on from a cell phone. No? That's weird. But I do like the red, black, and green backdrop in the background. But look, Brother T came on, sis, with the, ready to go with the army fatigue hat. Uh-oh, we getting some sound, Brother T. No?
Damn.
All right, Brother T. So, sis, let's jump in. Let's jump on in. Let me share my screen. I typed this up kind of fast. So we I don't know, I might have some misspellings. I typed it kind of fast. So tonight, family, we are going to be discussing the last part of the falsification of African consciousness. Sis.
Hi, Queen.
Hold on one second. Okay. All right, I'm sorry. Okay, so you're there. So we're going to be discussing the last part of the falsification of African consciousness, the political psychology of Black consciousness. This chapter consisted of about 6 subsections. The first is labeling as a source of control. Of labeling as social control, domination and the mislabeling of behavior, the medicalization of African social problems, ethnicized psychotherapy, educative psychotherapy, and lastly, fighting the power. Before we get started, I do want you, Sister Alima, to read some of the definitions that Dr. Amos Wilson provided us in the chapter.
All right.
Can you see my screen, sis?
Yes. Okay. Here we go. Okay. Key definition: oppressed, to have one's thoughts processes disturbed, emotions impaired, motives and values distorted, and one's body functions imbalanced. Pathological normality: disturbances in Black consciousness and behavior which are deemed serviceable and beneficial to the needs of their white oppressors. Normalization: the process of using the values of the norm to compare, differentiate, hierarchize, homogenize, to determine the level and values of abilities and the nature of persons and groups, to exclude, to mark the frontier of the abnormal. Medicalization of deviant / antisocial behaviors, page 107. Normalcy, the norms of one group, those with established power and a vested interest in wresting social change. Norms declared to be the norms of society as a whole. And Ethno-psychotherapy of psychotherapy can be found on page 109, family.
All right, so sis, let's jump right on in and discuss the first section, labeling as social control. Sis, I thought that the first paragraph was powerful because he's talking about social disease right here. Yeah, he's talking about social disease, and I immediately thought about integration. So he says this, family, social pathology precedes psychopathology. Collective pathology precedes individual pathology. That is, disease social interactions between groups generate disease social interactions within groups. And furthermore, disease social interactions within groups generate disease psychological interactions within individuals who are their constituents. My sister, when I first read that paragraph, I immediately thought about integration and how once we integrated, you kind of see the downfall of the Black community, socially, economically, politically, mentally, spiritually. You know, once we integrated, because what happened once we integrated with them, I'm talking about fully integrated with them. We began to take on all of their ills.
That's right.
And I remember back in the day, sis, when certain crimes were committed, we knew, white folks did that.
Right.
That white person did that. Oh, no, Black folks wouldn't do that. But as years go on, now you never know. When the case comes up, we don't know. And so that's what I thought about when I read this paragraph. Does anyone else want to chime on in?
I agree.
But one thing I've heard is that we didn't fully integrate with them. We desegregated because full integration would mean having full rights, would mean having equity, and we'd have the economic and political opportunity that we need.
True.
So the situation of being able to commit the same crimes and be on par there and just feed the prison industrial complex, that isn't exactly full integration. Full integration is where you can commit the same crimes and get the same type of sentencing. There's the crack versus powder, for example.
Talk about it, brother.
Yeah, so got you, brother. So you're saying we never fully integrated, we just desegregated. That was it.
Powerful.
Yeah, that was powerful. But you know what? When we desegregated, you see more and more of us taking on their illnesses, their mental illnesses, the more we desegregated. So even if we want to play I don't want to say the word game, integrate, desegregate, the more we assimilated to their culture and their ways, you saw an increase in the psychopathology of Black people. You saw an increase.
That's right. And the increase in the degenerate behavior in Black people.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
And so then, sis, he goes on to talk about normality versus abnormality, and how we've allowed, them to define what's normal and what's abnormal, so let's let one of the brothers go ahead and build on that. I thought that was kind of heavy, that we've, I don't want to say we've given them the power, but right now they've had the power to define what's normal, what's abnormal, what's good, what's bad, what's righteous, what's evil, what's appropriate, what's inappropriate. All right. One of the brothers want to take that on, normality versus abnormality.
I could just throw some pennies at it real quick as far as normality and abnormality. First, back when he spoke toward definitions of how we're defining ourselves socially with the rest of the world. He says that when he brought up the TV show Bill Cosby and so forth, whose idea was that present to define who we are as a people, to tell us what's normal and what's not normal in our households, like the interjecting of a conversation when two people are talking and we keep on cutting each other's build, or wisdom, as we should say. Um, when we look at life as normal behaviors to us from our perspective, that is the ideal way of what normal is to us. Because right now, we can say that we're chaotic because we have been influenced over the last 100 years, full of ignorance, and well, beyond 100 years, but just focused on the past 100 years. That the ignorance that has been taught to us and that we have inherited. And like y'all said, the the first paragraph sets the standard of the bar, as he does through this whole book. The very first paragraph emphasizes everything else as far as what we see as normal, or what they want us to think is normal, versus what is abnormal, or what should be someone else's norm, whether it be culturally or not. But I'll leave it right there.
Yeah, brother. And I just wanted to add to what you just said, that, or just drive home this point, that and he actually says this on page 102, that, normal and abnormal, really depends on, he says behaviors, right, that are perceived as serving or disserving the dominant interest. So it has nothing to do with what's really good for everyone and what's really bad for everyone, right? It has everything to do with, are you serving us or not serving us? And if you are serving us, right, or not, if you're not serving us, then you're a criminal. You're something is wrong with you. You're insane. You get what I'm saying? So and so they have defined normal versus abnormal based on their self-interest, really.
Well, Baba goes on to say that he said that normality, in essence, is political. And when you think about what's normal and what's right and what's wrong, it's always based off some type of policy. Even morality is political.
Come on.
It goes on to say that norm is in essence a principle of coercion, and it is, because when you tell someone that this is how it should be, you are coercing how they should think.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we can hear you now, Brother T.
Yes.
Awesome. Sorry for the I'm still working this stuff out with my computer. But when I thought about this this part in the chapter, I thought about when they criminalized our women, when they called them simple-minded. When they said they were not fit to bore children, so they did medical. They took the right away from them to bear children by doing terrible tests. So, and that kind of changed the dynamic of the family. You had women who were criminalized, basically, stating that the medical associations and the government said, "Hey, this person is simple-minded. She cannot bear children. So we'll take that right for her to bear child." So, in the sense of understanding how criminal-minded white supremacy was, they had no problem in defining who was right to take care of a child and who wasn't, and we were victims of that. So these are things that we have to look at in history to see how they redefined the family as we start to become socialized and what they deemed the norm. If you can understand where I was coming from on that aspect.
Well, yeah, I understand completely what you're saying, brother. You're saying that they label black women as unfit mothers, unfit to carry children.
Right.
That was a label, right?
That was a label, and that's something that they medically tried to give tests. They said that our women were unfit to raise children. That was one way for them to take our children away from us. And to create a new form of, and so it was not just, it was economics, but you understand that was a time when we start to be removed from slavery, and then all the vagrancy laws and things were put on us. They started to define who we were when we was trying to establish ourselves in every sense of history. When we tried to do that, what happened? They put new things on us. They did the syphilis test. For men to take that disease home to their women, and to spread it throughout the family. everything to define our ability to take care of ourselves. So you have to look at that not just in the economic sense, but also how they try to destroy us physically.
Facts, brother.
And that, so look, and that leads us into labeling as social control. Now, when I read this section, Queen, I immediately thought about ADHD, the label ADHD, learning disability, insane. You know, they say people are insane. We have a few hospitals here in Maryland for the insane. You know what I'm talking about, brother T. You got Shepherd Pratt, Shepherd Pratt Hospital. Yeah, so so you had the insane and good, bad, and all of that stuff. So how he's saying that they label us as a form of social control. All right. So it says, under oppression, the process of labeling behavior is as much as a part of the problem as it claims to be part of the solution. For the labeling process obscures the purposes for and means by which those states label are generated, maintained, and changed to fit the needs of those in power. So they're not labeling you to help you out, right? They're labeling you to maintain, the status quo. It has nothing to do with trying to classify or categorize individuals, but it has everything to do with saying, look, they're insane. They have the problem. So now we're looking at individuals as the problem instead of taking a look at the system that is responsible for creating these psychopathologies.
Racial labels are a form of social control.
What, brother?
I mean, just the like this is something Neely Fuller will say, is that there's only one race, the white race. That meaning that the white supremacists are the one who came up with all these different racial labels. That we didn't call ourselves black, they did. We, Latinos didn't call themselves Latino or Hispanic or whatever the label that they want to use. That's something that they created in order to categorize people, in order to further confuse the mystery. So that form of labeling, the form of social control that keeps non-white people from being united, since we're the majority on the planet.
All right. So then he gets into, I love this particular section right here. It says when he gets into authority, like how with authority. And I love how he explained it. He was saying that authority really occurs when we buy into an ideology.
That's right.
So, so we have to actually buy into the whole ideology of police are here to protect and serve, even though we know that police are here really to maintain the status quo. But we bought into that whole idea of them protecting and serving. So he's saying that authority, is not merely ascribed or granted to a particular person, a social group in a society for pragmatic reasons alone. He says the social and political ascription or granting of authority is usually rationalized or legitimated in terms of underlying ideology. So once we have bought and accepted this ideology, then we've given them the authority. And Sister Alima, remember we were just talking about how Dr. Amos Wilson, a lot of the stuff that he presents in this book, a lot of the information that he presents in this book, you can find it in Blueprint for Black Power. But remember in the first chapter where he talks about the different forms of power, and there's a section called the legitimacy of authority, something like that. I mean, you guys can go back and listen to the bill, but it's a section in there where he talks about the legitimacy of ruling or the legitimacy of authority, and basically about saying
authoritative power.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And so I immediately thought about that when I read this section.
I did as well, sis. Okay, let's move on into domination and the mislabeling of behavior.
Any of the brothers want to kick it off?
Page is that?
106.
Yeah, 106.
Okay, still on 106.
I'll read it.
Go ahead, Kofi. You like to talk.
No, I ain't gonna talk.
This way he starts talking about classifying and labeling consciousness and behavior.
So y'all want me to start right at domination and mislabeling of behavior? Y'all want me to read that?
Or whatever stood out to you, brother, in the particular section. Ooh.
Well, I'll be honest. I mean, I hadn't read the book in a while, But I'll read something and maybe I'll come up with something. Can I read just the first paragraph?
All right.
Okay. The domination as a social factor of situations necessarily disorder or reorders the thoughts, feelings, and emotions, motivation, values, psychological states, and consequences. The consciousness and behavior of the dominant. This disorder or reorder of consciousness and behaviors necessarily involves their political functions, labeling and classifying uh, their integrations. Classifyings of label consciousness and behaviors of the oppression and their oppressors provides them the means of abnormally pathological generated by oppressions or normalized in the oppressions, i.e., made the appearance to the following natures of order of the universe. Um, I'm sorry, y'all. I need to stop real quick. I got my son outside. I'm sorry.
When I was read this portion here, one thing I thought is about how they demonize us for fighting back, for us basically demonizing us for wanting to insinuate our rights as being blacks, understanding that we should be able to fight against power, that we should establish who we are, and we should establish what we should learn. So this gave me the thoughts on how they seem that to be wrong because we're fighting against a Eurocentric mindset, of being what they call deemed American. So this is what I got from the first couple of pages, first paragraph in this here. I mean, you want to fill me on that?
Yeah, brother. I wanted to add though. I agree with you because like when I say certain things out of my mouth, when I criticize, I don't even want to be more specific. Whenever I criticize, this European global system, right, of racism and white supremacy, or I criticize American culture, like you said, I'm looked at as being un-American. Something is wrong. I should be grateful. They've actually, I remember reading a news article a while ago, and I can find it while we're building, where a white teacher actually told students that Black people should be proud, be happy about slavery. Like, we should be happy, and for us to be upset, we should, we shouldn't be upset over slavery. We should be proud of it and happy that it occurred. Because if we weren't, I think she said we'd be in Africa worshiping trees, or she said something to that effect, that we would be uncivilized had slavery not occurred. So, she looked at it as, people being something was wrong with even being angry. We should be grateful, that this sort of stuff happened. So, I just want to concur with you that, whenever you go against this oppressive system, people will label you insane, crazy, angry, it's something wrong with you, because they promote conformity,
What seems to be normal is that supports and helps to elevate white domination.
Absolutely.
Right.
Against that, then it is therefore considered abnormal.
You get accused of being a racist because you're talking about racism, white supremacy, global system racism, white supremacy.
I find that people, some just don't understand exactly what white supremacy is. It's like I think someone mentioned Neely Fuller, and then he made that point that you have blacks, you have whites, and other races. If you don't understand white supremacy, you don't understand what's going on.
That's a fact.
And that's me paraphrasing Neely Fuller, but people just don't understand. And those who do understand, they don't want you to have the mindset to say, "Hey, hold up, why are you trying to normalize my oppression?" Just like they said in a couple paid chapters down. It's okay for them to normalize oppression, and we're looking at it and say, just like what happened to the young brother last year around December, just preparing if anything ever happens. That's something wrong. That's looked as being wrong. He's a black identity extremist just because this brother just getting his community in order. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with what's different than any militia that happens in the United States? What's wrong with that? So when we just try to make this stance, us, you sisters put the Resurgence of African Mind book club. What's wrong with you for not wanting to read about Huckleberry Finn and Mark Twain. You shouldn't be reading those books.
Right.
So this is in the mindset. So anything that goes against the norm is deemed to be demonized, and that we're trying to buck the system. And all we're trying to do is getting our right mindset. So this is definitely what I got from page 106.
Indeed, brother.
All right, let's move on to the medicalization of African social problems, sis. I thought about this. Because I have, a couple of buddies, that struggle with, different mental illnesses. And the first thing the psychiatrist wanted to do was put them on medicine. Your problems aren't caused by, it's not caused by the system. It's you. It's they've made everything a genetic problem. Or some type of biological problem. And so Dr. Amos Wilson says, so in essence, what they're doing is depoliticizing, the behavior. It says by denying, its political origins and causality. So it says, and by refusing to consider its remediation and prevention, so he went through all of that. But basically, I've seen it, firsthand, where something goes wrong. There's, something going on with the individual. And instead of trying to get to the root of it, you have doctors who now say, oh, this is, genetic, it's a genetic problem, it's a biological problem. And so what they do is immediately put you on, some medication. Yeah.
Were you looking at this as in the same sense of us telling our children they need Ritalin? And
That's what came to my mind.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, perfect example, Sister Alima, you homeschool your children. So for the first years of development, also the education, you learn their style of how they learn. And so you can better test them on what they know, because you know how they learn.
Right.
Unlike some of the schools, the majority of the schools that we put our children in, they don't take the time out to really learn our child. I have a hyper daughter. She just jumped up. She has a lot of energy. Her mitochondria is strong. I can't help that. The teacher can't help that. The teacher has 30 children inside the classroom. But the first year in pre-K, the lady wanted to say, hey, something's going on with this child. Instead of understanding that our children have energy, that they learn differently. She may need movement along with instruction. Taking the time out to figure that out would help our children learn better, but they don't have that time. They rather give them medication.
That's right.
Something like Ritalin that I think it is similar to cocaine, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
That's
and,
it. Go ahead.
So I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, but I just wanted to say before you go, that the problem that I see when they mislabel us all the time. But if you ever just go out somewhere and go into their community and observe their children, you're going to see how they actually behave. And they behave in a manner that's totally abnormal.
True.
Talk about it.
Yeah, and I was just what you were saying, brother, about this school system. My son is very hypertension. And they tried to diagnose him a few years. Well, they diagnosed him, told him he had ADHD, and my ex-wife was with my wife at the time. She didn't tell me she had him put on this Ritalin or whatever it was. So I did some research. It's more deadly than cocaine, and you have had a lot of cases of children dying from being on this medicine.
Talk about it.
And the kids and the teachers, like you said, don't want to take out time with the kids to get to know the kids. And just because they're hyper, you want to say that they're disrupted and something wrong with them. But also, it's a money factor when you're dealing with it also. They are doing things because of the money. Anytime you can put a child on ADHD, now the next step is special ed. They're going to come back and then they're going to ask you, they can't put your child in special ed, but they're going to ask. And a lot of times the parents agree with them and put them in, okay, you saying something wrong with my child. It needs one-on-one attention. They don't misdiagnose them. So now they put them in special ed. The school system get more money for children being in special ed. So if the school district is getting $800 a month, $800 a month for a child being enrolled in their school, Now it doubles. They get $1,600 for having the child misdiagnosed and then put into special ed. So it's all tied into a money thing with the misdiagnosis as well. And a lot of it is targeted toward people of color.
Mm-hmm.
So like another way to collect more money from us and like
So
put us
more
in the category. So you're absolutely right.
it's targeted more so at us also because we don't know a lot of stuff because we don't take the time to research. It's easier
Well, we
to
go back
know
to the
anything about our children and we're gonna believe it because we're not gonna
you go
research
right.
anything. Go ahead,
That's right.
bro.
You go back to and you go right back to I stated before in the authoritative and you know what we just talked about the domination and the authoritative measures basically. You know what I'm saying? We are afraid. Some parents are afraid to question teachers' judgment.
Yes.
They think, hey, you know, I didn't have much schooling myself, so I don't want to, you know better because you're learned in this. So we just hand out children over to their judgment. And what happens is that the school system keeps a file on your child from that point on, and it follows them their whole education. And then this is one way that may help with the pipeline to prison because they start, you know, your child has a problem with communicating with others. Your child has doesn't do well socializing with other children. So before these classes, your kids start getting a rap sheet of some sort, you know, just from this. So we have to be real careful on this because we got to make sure that we protect our children from this type of damage.
Right, because you're right, because they do collect once they go into the special ed program, they start this is gonna follow them. They build up a file on them because a lot of times a lot of those kids that are in special ed, they get so far behind. Some of them don't have but a fifth grade reading level and comprehension. So those types of kids that are in these classes that is being slowed down, they collect a file on these kids, and then they're most likely to commit a crime later on. This is why they collect the file on them because the kid can barely read, it can barely comprehend at this time if he's in these special ed classes for so long. He's the tendency he or she dropping out of school. So now it does not have an education. It can't comprehend. It can't read. It can't count. You know what I'm saying? You can't multiply. So these kids are targeted as being criminals later on down the line because they don't have a proper education, whatever that may be. But you know, they don't have a proper education, so they are down the line are gonna commit some sort of crime in order to take care of them, in order to take care of themselves.
That's right.
And unfortunately, after all that happened from pre-K to 12th grade, your child is now on some type of drug. It's been taken out of class, cannot labeled as not good social, socializing. So it's now your child has got the stigma. They're going out in society not thinking they're good enough, and they believe that they just can't act like they can't be like everyone else. So this is another good thing, and congratulations, Sister Lima, on your 1 year anniversary of teaching the homeschooling.
Thank you.
It's a wonderful thing that we take out children, and you know for a fact how your children are before they go out in society, and you know that hey, they're fine. They just need a little bit more attention. I know how to deal with them, and this is one of the beautiful things that we have to keep in mind because I'm witnessing in my own family, and I'm sure we all have witnessed in our family that basically that we have someone in our family that's been through this trauma, been put on Ritalin, has been put in special education, you know, who've been misdiagnosed, and some of them who are now adults and they can't function based off what they were taught early on in their education period. So
I just wanted to add, and I hope it's not about a background noise right now, but I just wanted to add to what you guys were saying about not questioning authority. We don't question the authority because, again, we've bought into the ideology, so we no longer question the authority. You know what I mean? And I remember earlier today, I said that in the Blueprint for Black Power, he discusses this in the name of the subsection is called competent and legitimate authority as power. So he's saying that that's a form of power when you have white folks who present themselves to be the authority, a legitimate authority. So you don't question it, right? Because we think that they are an authority. They know what they're talking about, right? Since we've brought into this ideology. But earlier today, I said that it was in chapter 1, and it is. And the name of the section is called Competent and Legitimate Authority as Power. So that is a form of power when we no longer question them because we deem them as authorities. I just wanted to add that.
But that goes back to what you were saying. We question them as authority is because of the food system. When you in, and I'm calling it the food system, anytime you in this food, and it's crazy because I'm in school to be a professor, but this food system, you know what I'm saying, it teaches our kids to have low self-esteem. It teaches us to be subservient and that the European race is the dominant race, is the smartest race. So we go through 12 years of initiation, which is you go through the first grade. This is initiation level. You go through the second grade. So they are indoctrinating us to have low self-esteem and to revere the white or the European race as the dominant and as the smarter. So as we go through these 12 years of initiation, then we go through 4 levels of another initiation of college, and then we go through another year and a half of initiation if we're getting our master's, another year and a half if we're getting our doctorate. So we done went through the educational system 7 or 8 years. So we're being taught that they are the dominant. So now, since we've been in school, now we have kids. Now whatever they say, we listen to what they say because we've been taught and been indoctrinated because we've been through their school system too, as they as the dominant. We did nothing to contribute to society, and they was the one to do everything in society, i.e. animal husbandry, i.e. science, i.e. mathematics, i.e. engineering, and etc.
That's a fact. That's a fact, brother.
Not to keep us on this particular part of the subject so long, but I was diagnosed and I was put in like remedial classes in the 5th grade. And my grandmother, my mom wasn't there at the time, but my grandmother couldn't challenge anything because I'm gonna give you a reason why she wouldn't challenge. She didn't have a way to, and she was confined to taking a cab to work every day, so she didn't have the resources to actually attend to the school and get them to do something different with me being in those classes. And part of it is she really believed that because my dad had died a year prior to the 5th grade, so he died when I was in the 4th, and I was acting out. I was really having like breakdowns. I would fight. I would do all kind of things in that nature. So it was kind of easy for her to give in to the system at that particular time. Well, when I go the first day I go into the class, and I'm like, I didn't want to be in the class, but as soon as I go into the class, I'm like, man, this work is too easy. I'm wasting my time here. And I knew then that really it was more so a behavioral issue. The reason why they wanted to implement to put me into this particular system versus what the actual problem was. It had nothing with me learning in school or anything like that. So because of my grades at testing, they couldn't hold me in the school after the grade period had ended because my grades were too high. So they had to, basically release me back to the population, as I call it. And so I went back to regular courses. But I knew that they kind of were getting paid for, it all makes sense because other friends of mine were all in these classes. Now, their lives turned out differently than my life. They ended up like JT said earlier, transcending from the from school to the prison pipeline. It is exactly what happened to the people that they had in there. So they got it right on some of us, they got it wrong on some of us. But it was all a scheme to put us in those positions to kind of trap us into that grind.
Nah,
Think about this. How many of our children definitely go through things at home and that may cause them to act differently in class? You talking about not having the ability to eat, not having the ability of both parents may be working, or maybe one parent at home. Like Brother Sean said, someone may pass away. So many things that they have to deal with that they're not being looked at. Our kids have to handle, and may not know how to handle it because they haven't been taken care of. Mentally. In our communities, not many have reached and put their children to see professional help, because we didn't have anyone that can sit down and talk to them and really figure these things out. And this child was being diagnosed. Maybe this child don't want to go to class and talk. Maybe he don't want to be around other children at that time, because maybe he see that he is different, that they go through different situations. You know what I'm saying? So many things that they have been misdiagnosed. And it could just be an issue that they may be going through because life has happened.
That's right.
So that's just something I wanted to put out before we go to the next one.
All right, let's move right along. Ethno-psychotherapy. Ethno-psychotherapy. I had posted the definition. I didn't type it on the slide earlier today when Sister Alima was, reading the slide of definitions, but I did note that it could be found on page 109. So Robert Leifer defined, ethnicalization of psychotherapy as the molding and the polarization of behavior so that it conforms to prevailing cultural patterns, not patterns, it's patterns. It is indoctrination or training of culturally specific traits, attitudes, and actions. It says the aim of ethnicized psychotherapy is to return the deviant to normal, and he has normal in quotes, i.e., to instill the deviant a set of particular traits, attitudes, values, behavior orientations, and goals, which when pursued or realized, support and maintain the political, economic, social status quo, along with its ruling elite. All right, so that's the ethnization of psychotherapy.
So yeah, I remember there's you want to go ahead?
No, brother, that's not me. That was Sister Alima. I'm getting ready to mute my mic.
Okay. There is there's various lectures, various YouTube lectures that are out there with Robert Amos Wilson, where he's talking about how white psychologists will use a white lens when they're trying to diagnose Black children. And that's something we kind of already went over, but that really kind of fits into what you're talking about with ethnicized psychotherapy, that we're looking at them and saying, well, these are the types of things that we see in white children. This is what we expect that we can do to treat white children so they behave in what we consider a normal manner, a normal white manner, or a normal manner, because it's universalism. They're taking whatever is white and making the default. And so then they apply that same methodology to any non-white child and say, well, they need to behave this way and they need to do these things. And if they're not, then they need to be labeled and medicated and all the other stuff that we just talked about.
All right, Sister Alima, did you want to spend more time on this, or you want to move to educative psychotherapy?
No, let's move on.
All right, so educative psychotherapy. Sister Alima, I had all of 111 highlighted, but we're not going to read it. It's just basically Dr. Amos Wilson says that, I think, does he define it? He says he contends that ethnization involves the use. So no. Okay, so I think he defines it at the beginning. Lee for 1969, it says makes an important distinction between ethnicized psychotherapy and educative psychotherapy. He points out that both therapeutic approaches turn on the fulcrum of social power. He contends that ethnization involves the use of social power to influence thought and conduct in socially approved direction. Education involves the analysis of social power among the subjects to understand its influence on the lives of the individuals and social groups. So he's saying that the goal, and he goes on to talk about the goal of educative psychotherapy. And in fact, he defines African-centered educative psychotherapy. And he's saying that the goal of African-centered educative psychotherapy is to imbue in its participant an African-centered consciousness and behavior orientation, which will maximize the positive expression of his fundamental humanity and his ability to maximally contribute to the growth and development of the African community of which he is a member. So he's saying that that is the goal of African-centered educative psychotherapy. And I mean, sis, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this because we always talk about the importance of African-centered consciousness. So, yeah, do you want to move on, or what are your thoughts?
Fighting the Power, page 113.
Fighting the Power. So, sis, I had to create a slide for this one, just so we could kind of go through the bullets. Let me know if you can see my screen. There we go, sis. So fighting the power. So in this particular section, Dr. Amos Wilson gives us 6 things that we should do in order to, I had echo somebody, but he gives us 6 things that we should do to fight the power. One is the reintegration of African history. Does anyone want to expound on that?
Yeah, we kind of touched on that earlier in this book as well. But the whole purpose of reintegrating ourselves is so we don't do what collect or have cultural amnesia when it comes down to these things. And that is, I mean, what jumped out to me when he said the true history and culture of African people must be rediscovered, re-examined, reintegrated by African people. The key word being by African people. We have allowed other people to write their interpretations and expectations of us over the last few centuries. And much of the common body of knowledge of our ancestral work that has been done has been going through the hands of the people who have oppressed us, or who have enslaved us, or who have kidnapped us or violated us in some way. Then he goes on to say these approaches to African history and culture must conjointly become the vehicles which facilitate the collective and cooperative action of African people in the pursuit of liberation. And in anything that we actually do, if our pursuit is correct, then when we study history, as he said earlier, what do we study history for if it's not to liberate, if we're not going to take the pieces out of it to inspire us to move forward and get us out of the hole, then we just stuck on stupid. But I'm gonna leave it right there because I know everybody want to add something into this, because this is this one thing right here can go on for hours.
Well, I mean, we've covered this before in previous sessions, and we all know about the whole concept of feel good history. And, I think the biggest example of amnesia is what Dr. Maat brought up earlier, where the lady was saying we'd be back in Africa worshiping a tree. I mean, that's obviously someone who's suffering from a cultural amnesia. But that's all I got to say about that.
All right, the next point is upgrading of coping resources. The upgrading of coping resources. Does anyone want to touch on that? The upgrading of coping resources.
That sounds like therapy. When I hear coping resources.
Is that coping resources? I'm trying to look for it. Is it coping resources?
It should be coping.
Yeah, I know. In this particular section, coping resources.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So in this particular section, he's talking about just us as African people, just taking control of the internal markets and resources, our own internal markets and resources. Yeah, I hear you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's what he was talking about. Purchasing resources.
Yeah. So basically saying right here at the top of page 115 says that the African community must occupy that the African community must occupy and control its internal markets and resources and utilize the resulting proceeds to remediate and finance its entry into national and international markets. He says that this must be accomplished simultaneously with the rapid and effective African-centered education and socialization of all of its constituents. He says young and old. Does anyone want to add to that?
I mean, so it just sounds like group economics. Like one of the things I mentioned before is like, I kind of feel like we should work on the cultural piece first, you know, so yeah, reintegration of African history, getting on code so that we have some semblance of operational unity. And then with that sort of common culture in place, we could then work on group economics more effectively and then move forward and use that economic power to start to push into political power. But it's not like he's saying we need to do all that at the same time.
I mean, I get that, you know, I get that we have to, he says, you know, we have to educate and socialize everyone, the young and the old. I totally get it, but I can't lie, Sister Alima. You know, I'm holding on to Frederick Douglass' quote, you know, that it is easier, he said, to build strong children than to repair broken men. I maybe it's just not me and it's not my calling, so I don't have the patience, you know, I don't have the patience, sis. I'd rather focus on the babies and I guess let, you know, the Army Raw Squad and Marcy Warrior Clan and, you know, and MBK and all of those groups kind of, you know, deal with, you know, the adults.
Agreed. I
Yeah.
think everyone has their particular lane, you know,
Yeah.
of what it is that they can help to bring good fruit. And that's not mine either. I don't have, aside from my books, you know, that's probably the most I can reach adults, but I don't have the patience either.
Yeah. My focus is on the babies, but I understand that we got to get the adults, you know, on the same page, because at the end of the day, you know, I can focus on the children all day long, but then when they're sent back into these homes with these other adults, you know, whatever I'm trying to inculcate them with, or you know, or instill in them, it has to be reinforced in the household.
Exactly.
You know, it has to be. So I totally understand why Dr. Amos Wilson is saying that, you know, we got to simultaneously, re-socialize, you know, the old and the young, you know.
Well, I just wanted to point out one thing, that especially being that the elections just passed, and of course, as every year we see the great divide between those conscious and unconscious, as far as whether they should vote or shouldn't vote. But people like to spew out Amos Wilson, and they like to talk about him and repeat his words, but they conveniently leave out the fact that he was very political, and he talks about the fact that policies or political is everything is political. Basically, be it education, be it medicine, it doesn't matter what it is. So his main focus is that he's always emphasized is that we need basically our own candidates or people that we can push to the forefront ourselves, whom we have groomed, whom we have put money into. But I don't hear him or many other of the greats that everyone likes to reference talk about the fact that we shouldn't be political.
I agree.
I was just wondering on the panel's opinion on that, because I know that we often get very split, and some people say you should vote, you shouldn't vote. Then others say, well, you should vote, but you gotta have the right candidate. And I was just wondering, because I know that that's something as far as nation building, policy is at the center of it, you know. And I hear a lot of people sound very radical on social media, but I don't hear a lot of logical speaking, because you have to be involved in policy and politics wherever you are, especially if you think that you're going to try to infiltrate it and change it in some way.
Agree. You definitely made a good point.
Watkins versus Roland Martin.
The point, I mean, as we learned in Blueprint with Black Power, we had to learn the power structure. And the only way to effectively remove it, we have to understand how to build our own power structure. And I know one thing is, you know, we have to collectively in our community understand economics. And we have to, in our community, also know the importance of history. But as Dr. Maat and yourself just stated, it's so much easier um, to mold the youth because their minds are still impressionable. They're still learning, and you have us adults who are kind of set in our ways. And one of the things that I had to in my talks with friends and family, for them to understand why we need to be practice group economics, is to understand the economic structure that we're in right now. We don't have any money. And the majority of us don't know how money works and how this power structure, economic power structure, works. So when you introduce to them that it does, it's important to understand economics and to build business and understand how policies affect it all. It's like if I can build a business in my basement, yes, and I can trade amongst everyone on this panel. But if I break a law based off of policy, they can shut me down. If I don't, you know what I'm saying? So the thing is, we have to understand that we have to do things correctly. And in order to do that, we also understand that in order for us to make a solid foundation, we may have to also enter that political realm. And we have to groom a person up and support them through policies and procedures. So it's education. Just as we educate in education and educate in group economics, we also have to go back to the adults and understand, hey, we're in dire straits here, and we have to build from the foundation. You have to understand politics. Like I said, Dr. Amos Wilson said, everything revolves around politics, and that's
That's a fact.
one great thing that the Black Blueprint Black Power broke down. We learned how everything from the education system to the economic system, how power was structured.
All right, people. I'm here. Chaos is here. I missed so much. I missed last week. I did catch the playback, and I missed so much today. And I find this book to be very informative. And one thing with Amos Wilson books, and people never understand, he makes you at least think when you read his writings. You know, to look at a different perspective, how we look at ourselves culturally in this system. You know, and we have to put emphasis. Culture is very necessity. You know, besides learning how to read and write, but we have to put back how we used to do things. You know, and I think he did a pretty good job during the times he was here with us. You know, and I think if he was still around, he probably would have taken it even further. But like always, everybody has to take them out and continue on with this work and put us to a place where we need to be as collective, as a group of people. Not one man or woman can do this.
Absolutely, brother. It has to be a collective effort. And I'm telling you, man, I mean, I know he was only here 47 years, but that man was like a walking vault of a walking vault of knowledge.
53 years,
Man. I mean, he was
53
wonderful.
years.
I thought he was 47. I thought he was 47.
No, he died 53 because he was born in 1941. He died in 1995.
Yeah, man. But he was amazing. You know, for the time, he was very impactful in his 53 years, man. But I want to move on to the next bullet: neutralizing of social stressors. Dr. Amos Wilson tells us that institutional racism generates stressors. He says such as inadequate family incomes, healthcare, education, job training, housing, employment, economic development, and restricted, stereotypical, biased information and entertainment services. He says restrains the Black community's coping mechanisms. So he's telling us in this particular section that we must look at our situation also, you know, as a stress-related problem, you know, that we have to solve, because the Black community is stressed and very frustrated. He talks about this in his book, The Developmental Psychology of the Black Child, the frustration of the Black community, you know, and the lack of healthy coping mechanisms that exist within the Black community. Does someone want to build on this particular section?
No, I was just going to say that's correct. I mean, when you deal with the situations that we go through in our communities or hoods or neighborhoods, the jobs that we have, when we live in check to check, the drugs in our community, the disrespect of the elders and so forth. A lot of the things that goes on in our community is very stressed. The income, everything that's going on with this social stress that he's talking about is very unhealthy in our community. If you understand something, stress, what does stress bring? Stress brings sickness. And then what does sickness bring? Sickness brings death. So a lot of us is also dying at an early age because of stress, the conditions that we go through or we face on a day-to-day basis. So we have to learn how to eliminate these social stresses. And it goes back to economics. We're going to have to understand economics. We're going to have to start to teaching, we are talking about the babies. We're going to have to go back and teach the baby. See, I don't teach my son, even though I ain't spoken in a while. I done had a few businesses, few of them done failed. I'm working for somebody right now, but it's not going to be too much longer. We have to go back to teach our kids to go to school. If you're going to go to school, we tell our kids to go to school, get a good education, and get a job. We need to start telling them, go to school, get an education, and become an entrepreneur. We have to start pushing out our kids and everyone to start to be entrepreneurs. We have to teach them about economics. We have to teach them about circulating the dollar. We have to teach them about owning things. And then a lot of these things, these social stresses, you know what I'm saying, wouldn't affect us because we'll have land where we're able to build houses on. We'll have land where we're able to put up businesses and employ people and give them a proper wages where they're not living check to check, and inspire them and to teach them how to be entrepreneurs, train them, you know what I'm saying, and the proper education. Therefore, we won't have stress. Therefore, stress won't bring sickness. Therefore, sickness won't bring death.
I'm all for the entrepreneurial thing because I think that does take some stress off. But given that we are in this global system of white supremacy again, they can still mess with your contracts, your clients that you were trying to bring in, or as one of the brothers said on the panel, if you are not to regulation, not to code, they could shut your business down. And then I even if we got wildly successful and we did the group economics thing, I think a lot of people are discouraged or are fearful that what if we did grow something so vast and so grand that it was on par with another Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma. How can we prevent that type of catastrophe, that type of disaster from happening again, where somebody dropped a bomb on us, whatever?
You can't, but you can't fear it.
You can't,
That's the problem. We can't fear. We have to stop fearing that. We have to stop running from what ifs and just build it. Our outcome should be determined by our efforts. So we should not talk about Black Wall Street. We should organize to rebuild Black Wall Street.
But see, that all falls in line to politics.
True.
This is what I keep saying. Everything is political. People say that often. They fear us having another Black Wall Street. Well, that's where you have to infiltrate their system. You can't have another Black Wall Street if I'm all up in your shit and I know what you're doing. Like, you can't come bomb my community. Like, that's political. How would I not know? My point is that Black Wall Street, when that happened, that was politically orchestrated. It's not like a bunch of random people just made it happen. But what was the Black representation that could have got could have had the foresight on that? Where was they? They didn't have any. That's going to always be an issue when we try to do things outside of the political realm.
I actually agree. I agree with the sister that it was definitely politically orchestrated. I mean, anytime you have planes flying in the air,
exactly,
shooting, shooting at the people below, it wasn't just a bunch of random white folks who shot up Tulsa, Oklahoma.
At all.
It wasn't.
Government.
Right, absolutely. That was government. No one has a helicopter, no plane in that backyard.
So that's what I'm saying. You can't change the system. If you're going to live within this system, which we all have to, you have to infiltrate it. You have to be a part of it. You can't think that you're going to be successful from the outside. How can you be successful when you can't watch your fucking enemy? You have to watch them the same way they watching you.
That's a fact. And I also want to add, to what Brother Kofi was saying. He was saying that that stress brings sickness. I want to also add that those stressors that we talked about, income, family, education, and things of that nature. It also is frustration. It also brings, on a feeling of powerless. You start feeling just powerless. That, it brings on a feeling of powerless. And then the things that come about, or the things that precipitate from that feeling of powerlessness, such as, I know Dr. Amos Wilson in his book, The Developmental Psychology, talks about low achievement need. You don't want to achieve anything, right? You have a low achievement need. He also says you have a low extension need, meaning that you don't think beyond yourself, right? So you have a low extension need, and you also have a high dependency need. So that you become very, very dependent, when you have this powerless mindset. So I also wanted to add that these stressors can precipitate, a feeling of powerlessness. So let's move on to the next bullet. I think we have 3 more bullets in this particular section. Reversing reactionary states of the African body politic. So actually, this goes into what you were saying, Sister Alima, that we lack, a body politic. What do you think? Let me see. So it says the African body politic must immerse itself in the center of an African center. Here you go, Sister Alima. The African body politic must immerse itself in the center of an African-centered political, that's the first thing, political, economic, historical, cultural force field if it is to repel the sustained hold on it by white supremacy. So I don't even think we need to build on this because we just did. Second to last bullet, controlling of effective coping strategies and tactics. So I know that in this particular section, he's saying that we have to choose, that Africans must choose coping strategies and tactics which reverse tendencies to be motivated by Eurocentrically induced lacks, deprivations, needs, anxieties, and appetites. So essentially he's saying in this section that we need to come up with our own coping mechanisms, right? Because right now they've given us coping mechanisms. They give us alcohol, they give us cigarettes, they flood our communities, with drugs, and they say, here are your coping mechanisms, right? And so we need to come up with our own coping mechanisms. And he says right here that it says coping mechanisms against oppression-related stress. He said we must reject those coping mechanisms and replace them by positive African-centered practices, pursuits, and pleasures. So replace all of that stuff, all of those different coping mechanisms that we currently have in the Black community to deal with these stressors. Replace that with positive African-centered practices, pursuits, and pleasures. Does anyone on the panel have a suggestion for, positive African-centered practices, pursuits, and pleasures?
Create a shrine, ancestor shrine. I wish I could share a PDF that explains that, but that's one way. I'll let somebody else respond.
I would say meditation.
Meditation, and definitely going back to the homeland, going back to Africa. You know what I'm saying? I think that's definitely on my list. I definitely have to see something different, and it's what we study, and I think that definitely helps us put things in perspective, being in that land. So that's definitely one thing that I know I want to use to help cope with what's going on in this world right now. I need to get back to the homeland.
What about what we're doing right now? A group of
most definitely
individuals.
Yes. Therapy. Black people need therapy.
Yes.
Black people need therapy, most definitely.
For Black therapy, not white people.
Get some goddamn
You think about it. Just think about it. If you look at something like the sisters stated earlier, Dr. Akbar. He's a Black psychologist, correct? Someone who understands our experiences brought us. We have to have people like-minded, like a Dr. Francis Cress Wilson, who understood exactly what we needed that we're up against. And like Sister Alima said, some of us, we need help, and we have to address that before we make one more step forward.
All of the coping mechanisms that they provide are toxic. I'll say ratchet And these are the types of things that we should avoid. So avoiding toxic coping mechanisms and toxic environments and toxic people, just eliminating them or reducing contact with them as much as possible is one way to at least try to get healthier by just reducing your exposure, like it's radioactive.
Yeah.
Do we have any type of centers open? I mean, I understand exactly what you're saying. If a military person is in Iraq or Afghanistan or somewhere fighting in the war, and it sees so much trauma, it sees a person get blown up in front of them. It's seen a child run up with a scrap bomb and get blown up. They see a plane, a helicopter explode. These people come back with post-traumatic disorder, right? So they have to go through therapy of the trauma, the traumatic drama that they have seen. So it's the same thing. We passing this trauma down from one generation to the next. So I do agree we need some therapy, because when we were so-called free, you know, we didn't get the therapy. You know, we seen our mothers get raped, gang banged. We seen our father get booted over a tree and his pants stripped down, and what they call breaking the buck, where he was sodomized in front of the what's name. We seen our grandfather get beat. We seen our auntie get strapped to a horse and pulled apart and ripped apart. So yeah, we do need some drama. I mean, some therapy. But where can we go to get therapy?
Definitely, and I know that a stress reliever for me is reading. You know, just laying in my bed, you know, reading a book and zoning out. That helps me to release stress. So just reading, also exercising. People can exercise, even painting, art, getting involved in arts and craft. Getting involved in martial arts. Like, I'm just thinking of different things that we can do other than say, you know, let me get high, or let me do, you know, it's other things that you could do. Go to a boxing center and punch a bag, you know, get involved in Tai Chi. You know, it's plenty of things that we can do to release some stress. Even go paintballing. I know next weekend, Brother T, I was going to invite you. We're taking Harvey for his birthday. His birthday is on Friday. And so we're going to take, you know, all of the teenage boys out and go paintballing, you know, paintballing, you know. So, you know, I just think there's plenty of things we could do.
But anything we can do with the family. But go ahead. One thing I realized that in our community, I remember a time when I was growing up that we had a hobby. And that hobby detailed things that was probably passed on from the family. My grandfather was a corn collector, but the corn collection wasn't just having a shiny corn. It also told the history of the country that it was from, what time, the wealth of the country. I mean, certain things that we can grab. It doesn't cost a lot of money, and some things you can do that you can bring the whole family and make them be a part of. So I mean, like Dr. Maat said, you know, you can work out, the martial arts, things like that. Some things you just can do, just bring back that old hobby that made you interact everything, not just sitting in front of a computer, maybe playing Xbox. I'm not going against anyone who loves playing the video games. I'm just saying that there's other things that you can do, that you can cope, that you can learn history from, that you can also you can probably pass on to your child. And I know it's probably a little different from a coping strategy, but I know that helps me because it's something that is inexpensive, and it still gets me the opportunity to learn about history and reading, like Dr. Maat said, that you can also take parts of. So we have to find that thing, or we may have to create it if it's not out there. I know.
No, I was getting ready to say absolutely, bro. I agree with you. If it's not out there, we may have to create it. You know, and I mean, I just, you know, participating in African drum circles. I'm disappointed today that they had a African drumming ceremony out. I think it's like some part of Maryland, but like maybe like 30 or 40 minutes from my house, and it's from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. So I didn't go because I knew we had the book club meeting. But I'm thinking just participating in African drumming, dance, dancing, so just think of the different things. But let's move on to the last bullet, the African control of labeling and treatment processes. So in this particular section, he's saying that we need to label our own things, classify our own stuff, and then come up with the types of treatment. Because right now, they classify you as a criminal, they throw you in prison, right? Or they classify you as ADHD, they put you on Ritalin. They classify you as having a learning disability, and then they put you in a different class, right? With other kids who've been labeled the same. So that's their labeling and treatment processes. So what Dr. Amos Wilson is saying is that we need to control our own labeling and treatment processes. So what does the panel have to say on this?
Totally agree. I'm in agreement with that. I also agree with what he says about the oppressors produce a consciousness in the oppressed not only by manipulating their ecological and sociological lifestyles and possibilities, but also by naming the world in which both they and the oppressed exist. So to your point, I absolutely agree. I think that everything that we should do, if you're going to self-proclaim to be African centered, then you must take on your own ideals and concepts, and you have to and how everybody this so-called woke make this phrase of unlearning and relearning, but what are you relearning if you're still looking from the lenses of a European? So if you're going to unlearn, you must also change your view and unlearn that as well, and then ingest a whole new you, so that the way that you see and you view things, you see and view them from your worldview, from your social construct, from your ideals, from your definitions. I'm just tired of being defined by other people's expectations of what I should be or
Say it,
what should
brother.
not be.
Say it, brother.
That's all I got. I'm gonna be quiet.
Yeah, well,
I want to.
Dr. Maat and Lame, I appreciate y'all for having me on the panel. I got to go now. I got another show I have to do, man. But I appreciate y'all being on the panel, allowing me. Yeah, coach, got to go, y'all.
We appreciate you,
Yeah, we
brother.
appreciate you, brother. Peace and love, my brother. We appreciate your presence.
All right, take care, brother.
Peace.
Yeah, but that was powerful what you just said, brother Sean P. Like you said, we claim to be African centered. Well, then we got to participate, in self definition. We got to define our own, self definitions. And so, I want to leave everyone with this. I thought this was powerful. He said to name, to label, is to bring into consciousness, and therefore to transform consciousness. So when we talk about transforming our consciousness and things of that nature, then we have to participate or get involved with, not even participate or get involved. We must assert our right, he says, our right and power of self-definition. So that's it, family. I mean, Sister Alima, I don't have any more, Queen. I think, we covered it all.
Yes, we did. Another book down.
Another book down, sis. So be on the lookout, family, for our next, we're going to announce probably this week, the next text that we plan on reading. Does the panel have any last words before we close out?
Yeah, before I dance on y'all, man, it was a privilege and an honor to be on the panel with you two beautiful sisters and the rest of the fellas that joined in on the last chapter. I know it's kind of difficult to have certain conversations with certain people and try to build when their ideologies could be different, but this environment is a learning environment and a good experience, and I appreciate you two for collectively putting this together and pushing it out to the community, because it's something that we all should be a part of and involved in. So if anyone in the chat, did not purchase the book but did follow the discussion, man, get the book. Go back and reiterate it. It's a good read. It's probably only going to take you 72 hours to actually read this book, or if you read like some of us read, but to ingest and then to digest this information, because it's a lot of information in this book, even though it's only 119 pages. But also read the appendix section. There's some jewels left in the appendix section that we could actually learn from. So I can't wait for the next book, and that's my 2 cents.
All right.
Brother Tola.
He done muted his.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm done. Sisters, thank you so much for allowing me to be on the panel. I learned a lot from this book. Even though I have not been on, once again, I create a platform, and I definitely learned a lot from Amos Wilson, Barbara Wilson, and for everyone on the panel. Keep reading, and look forward to the next.
All right. I guess that's it, family.
All right, brother.
Close it out.
Yeah, I thought Brother Melisala, I thought you were going to say something, Brother Chaos. Do y'all want to say a few words?
Well, I'll say this. So in Blueprint for Black Power, Dr. Amos Wilson talked about his definition of power as being power over or power to. And then we just read in this last section how we need to reclaim the power over our own identities by utilizing the power to name things, including ourselves and what we are trying to do as we interact with our reality. So I think that is a very important concept, very important takeaway from this whole book. And I hope that we will revisit that and other ideas from Dr. Amos Wilson and future works of his in the RAM Book Club.
All right, Brother Chaos.
All right. Well, I gotta get back to the replay to catch all of it because I read this book personally and finished it like a few years back. And it's always a good read to go back to this book because like many books, if people never read Amos Wilson works, they're going to change their paradigm, how they look at the world and look at themselves, African people, not just what people label what we are as a collective. And it gives more pride and respect to our greatness and us to embrace our Africanness and not to be ashamed, but to really have a key understanding of it. Because what you don't understand, you don't know, and what you don't know, you're gonna demonize and shame because you go by what people tell you. I think one of the things that our people need to do is to get off this myth of what people tells us what we are. We gotta know what we are by ourselves. Look into self first, and branch out and find information that's out there to dispel that myth about us as a collective, as people. And doing that, I think we'll go farther as a people. Because like I see it, it's only gonna get worse, and the only reason why it will get worse because our people continue to deny our true selves. Because no race can destroy you unless you destroy yourself. That's the power that we give them because we don't really respect and cater ourselves. So that's what I'm gonna say. Thank you for another great reading of this wonderful book. And I hope by 2019 we go for every book from Amos Wilson. But I'll sit back and hope you keep us informed, Dr. Maat.
Yeah, but Sister Lima and I, we discussed this. We actually discussed that earlier today. Like, do we really want to read another book by Dr. Amos Wilson? And we both decided that we wouldn't. And she said maybe if we didn't read the Blueprint for Black Power, like if we didn't read the Blueprint for Black Power, then yes. But like when we read the Falsification of African Consciousness, a lot of the things that he discusses in his book is in the Blueprint for Black Power. He wrote a book called The Developmental Psychology of the Black Child. That was a lot of new information, but he took like all of chapter 3 from Blueprint for Black Power and put it in. Like, it's just, I think that, we're at a point where we've exposed, folks to his work. And if they want to, read more of his books, they can. But, we're going to I'm not going to say stay away, but right now we're not interested in reading like another.
Well, I'll make this and ask for requests. If any other book besides Amos, besides the what they call the New Age, New World Order, even that book, I would say if y'all could entertain it, y'all should entertain the Black on Black violence book.
Yes, I saw that one. I actually have it.
And I was thinking, if any other book you not could go by Amos, I would say if y'all cover that, that should be enough for Black people to understand, because we get this perception of we always hear about there's always Black on Black violence. But I think when he wrote the works on that, it makes a little sense why Black people, especially men, engage in Black and Black violence and servitude, white imperialism. So,
Yeah.
but like I said, I sit back and hope y'all think about it.
Then look, and then he has another book, and we talk about child rearing. You know, the developmental psychology of the Black child, and he also has the awakening the genius of the Black children. And he has African-centered consciousness versus the New World Order. And then he has another one. I'm looking at my library right now. Understanding Black male violence. You know, so more than likely, brother. More than likely, brother. You know, and I'll be reading more of his work. I actually have all of his books, and I know that Baba Sababu is coming out with another book, probably the end of this month, early December. He's going to publish one of Dr. Amos Wilson's written speeches that he was never able to deliver. And the name of the book is going to be called The Psychology of Self-Hate. So I'll be buying that book as well. But you know, all right, brother Sean P said he's out. No problem, brother Sean P. Shem Hotep to you, brother, also. But we kind of want to move on, brother. You know, it's a lot of other books. And so I feel like we did our job by exposing, you know, the community to expose it for those who have never heard of Dr. Amos Wilson. I think that she and I did a wonderful job exposing the community to those folks. So if anyone wants to continue to read his work, they can. But I'm not going to utilize more of the RAM Book Club to go through all of the elders' work. We want to move on to, like, you know, people like Joy Dugary. She has a wonderful book, Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome. Dr. Michelle Alexander has a wonderful book, The New Jim Crow. Brother T, you put us on with another book called The Color of Money. There's another one called The Color of Law. You got Claude Anderson's book, White Wealth, Black Labor, or Black Labor, White Wealth. You got that. You got Power Economics. So yeah, we need to move on, brother. You know, we trying to get to the Yorugu, you know, by Dr. Marimba Annie. You know, we trying to get to that at the top of the year. We also want to get to some books by Walima Baruti. You know, he has E.Y. Pelly. He has a few books that we want to touch on. We want to get to Kwame Nkrumah nation building. So we can't spend. We go through Dr. Amos Wilson. We would be, you know, this is, you know, with Dr. Amos Wilson, we would be spending a couple of years. You know.
Just
on his book. What do you say, Brother T?
Yeah. I mean, he has so much information. I just picked up a book some time ago called Issues of Manhood in Black and White.
Yeah, I got that book.
And I haven't cracked it open yet. So you says, Dr. Maat, there's so much that he has. And I mean, and I think you two done justice, especially opening up the RAM with Blueprint for Black Power. That book was so powerful in a sense. So I think you're going through the right path of creating so many other material to introduce the RAM Book Club to. So excellent job.
All right. So with that said, family, be on the lookout for the title of the next text. I'm going to discuss it with Sister Alima. I wish you all a safe, productive, and fulfilling week. Peace and love.
All right, take care.